You're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram.
Hi, my name's Emilia. I play cricket for Oxford and Italy, and you're listening to the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Dibbly-Dobbly podcast. And on the podcast, we have started a new series on the podcast looking at associate nations within cricket and how they are developing the game in their country. And many of us cricket fans know so much about the established cricketing countries and not enough on the associate nations who play cricket. So it would be nice to learn more about those associate countries, and via the podcast, people can learn more as well. For today's Associate Cricket Series episode, we are discussing all things Italy women's cricket, and joining me to discuss and talk all things Italy women's cricket is Italy female cricketer Emilia Bartram. Emilia, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on your podcast. It's good to be here.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to have you on and to talk about all things Italy women's cricket. Now, when people think about Italy in terms of the sporting side of things, they think about football and cycling and some other sports as well. But cricket does have a place in Italy, and it's been going on in Italy for quite some time. And they do get around cricket, and they do play the sport. And particularly girls and women, females, taking up cricket. And you're a part of the national team, and we're going to discuss about that in our chat today. Talking about all things women's cricket in Italy and how the women's game is basically doing in Italy. How's it being grown and developed, and the national team, of course, and what's the plans on the horizon for the team, and what tournaments and goals they want to try and get into and achieve in their journey in international cricket. So I think everyone will have a bit of an education in this episode today about Italy in terms of cricket, and also female cricket as well, which is what the series is all about. In this associate cricket series is about educating people on these associate countries who play cricket and who are deeply passionate and enthusiastic about the game. And I've chatted to many people who are passionate and enthusiastic about cricket, and they want what's best for the sport in these associate countries. So that's fantastic. But before we do that, Emilia, as I do with all my guests that I've interviewed on the podcast, I like to take them back to when they first got into cricket, and it's been very fascinating listening to people's memories on how they got started into cricket. So, Emilia, let's go back to the very beginning, growing up. I know that's a long time ago. Time flies. What were your earliest memories of watching, playing, and even going to the cricket? And who were some of the cricketing idols that you looked up to growing up?
So I think, like a lot of people, I started playing cricket in the garden just with my dad, my brother, kind of classic, using the tree as a stump, and if you hit it over the fence, it's 6 and out. And then in school we had someone come, a coach called Manoj Palmer, who's still based in Oxford. He just came and did kind of like after school cricket, PE cricket, that sort of thing, and he always greatly favoured me because I was one of the only female players. And he said, you should go and find a club. And so my dad took me to Oxford Cricket Club, where we were lucky enough to find Ros Porter, an absolute legend of cricket in Oxford. And I've basically just been there ever since. And then not that long ago, so about a year ago, that's when I started getting into the Italy stuff. But I've been playing cricket all my life. I don't watch it so much just because I'm playing a lot. And so trying to watch as well is tricky. But I actually, funnily enough, supported Australia for about the first 20 years of my life. I think maybe just out of spite of my dad, but just to wind him up a bit. I got Shane Warne behind you, but legend of the game, just incredible. Anderson, I think also his longevity as well. I think it's incredible, and I think it just shows what you can do if you train properly and if people back you. And Ricky Ponting, he just glorious batter, Glorious batter. Yeah. So they were my idols growing up. Now it's such a cliche, isn't it, to say Ben Stokes, but I really like the mindset he's brought, even if not, he's a match-changing player, but I think the mindset and the focus on the kind of mental side of cricket, I think, has been something that all teams could take into their own camps.
Yeah, definitely. You've mentioned some great cricketers there on that list. I couldn't agree more. Ricky Ponting was one of my idols too. And I've got the poster behind me of him celebrating his century in his 100th test, funny enough, on that poster. A very fine player indeed. But they all had different characteristics and different match-winning abilities. I suppose, that's, how people get into cricket. You get drawn by these cricketers that have an appeal on you and have a, sort of a, what's the word? Appeal. That's it. Yeah, that's a word to describe it. Appeal that you can relate to and you want to watch them dominate and do well. And obviously those cricketers you named have done pretty well over their careers. And that's why people get drawn to sports or cricket, just for those athletes and players that they like to watch. And, once they're in the team, that the team is safe and, a result is going to go your way because you have those players on your side. And it was also interesting hearing your introduction into cricket as well. I suppose everyone's introduction to cricket's different, isn't it? You find the game differently in different paths and different ways. And that's what makes cricket unique and different, because it's that difference about it. Everyone's different. Everyone plays differently. Everyone thinks about the game differently. Everyone has a different perspective on the game. And people are passionate about the game because they love it. What's best for the game as well. So, hearing those memories and introductions into the game, from many people I've spoken to on the podcast, it's you notice the differences in everyone, but it all comes back together. There's the core meaning, which is cricket, really. And that's why everyone loves this game. And that's why you have embarked on this journey of, becoming an international cricketer, which you have done with Italy. Excuse me, my voice is going. That's not a good sign. We've only just started. Anyway, where was I? Yes. And you've embarked on this journey to play cricket internationally for Italy as well, which you'll talk about in just a moment. But just going back to those early days of playing cricket, what's the one memory that stands out from playing cricket at your club or with your family or in the backyard? What's the one thing that you take out from those times when you were growing up playing the game? What's the one memory that sticks out for you?
I think in the garden with my dad, I always used to think, how is he always in the right place when he catches the ball? Because I remember running around, how kids do with their arms outstretched and then marking the ball. And I just thought, how does he always catch it right here? That's just mad. And then 10 years later, you just do it because that's just how you catch. And you move to the ball and it just makes perfect sense. But I remember thinking that a lot when I was playing with my dad. How does he, he's always in the right place. Such a good cricketer.
He's the wily old pro, isn't he?
Well, yeah. And then I guess one of my big memories from Oxford was when Ros taught me how to bowl, because I do the classic, run up and then you hop on one leg. And I just remember that she tore out cardboard squares and put them on the ground. And she'd made me run up and put my feet on the right ones. And then all of a sudden I could bowl. And that was, I can remember that quite distinctly in the old ground when we were on Roman Way. And she's still coaching. She's amazing.
Yeah, no, definitely. You have these coaches that you go to as a kid for clinics and whatever, and then years later, they're still there. They haven't aged a bit. They're still coaching. They're still coaching kids
Yeah.
And, like, you should be retired or just put your feet up or something instead of doing this. Why do you do it? They love the game of cricket. That's the reason they do it,
Yeah.
which is fantastic.
Mm.
Definitely. So it was good to hear those early introductions and memories for you into the game. Just another question: any female players that stood in your mind when you were growing up? Obviously, not much women's cricket when you were growing up back in those days, as it is now for the younger generation to watch and admire. But did you have anyone that you gravitated towards in the women's game when you were growing up?
I was thinking about this when I was saying my players, that I think it reflects how few female cricketers there were. Not necessarily there were, but that were kind of, they didn't have the same exposure as they do now. So you just didn't really hear about them as much. So they didn't, even if they were equal in terms of their skill level, you just, like, as a kid growing up, you didn't have that as you do now. So you kind of idolize them less, don't you? Because, I mean, you're a kid, you just don't think about it. I was always aware of Charlotte Edwards as a kind of legend of the game, captained for years and years and years. And then Isha Guha as well. She actually came and coached us once in Oxford. But again, at the time, you kind of don't connect the dots when you're young, in a way that these are incredibly skillful athletes. And I think now everyone would just acknowledge that, someone like Sophie Ecclestone is incredible and, like, at the height of her game, and, like, but then back then there wasn't that same equality. So yeah, you just, I suppose, thought about it differently.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, it's very different now, and probably for the better now, really.
Yeah, way better.
Definitely. Women's cricket's got that exposure, and it's really grown over the last few years, and we'll talk about that as we progress in our chat today. But let's go to your international career and talk about that for Italy. Now, in 2022, you started playing for Italy for the first time and embarked on your international cricket journey. And recently, you've been appointed as vice captain of the team as well. You've been in that role for 6 months now. So you've had some opportunities to show leadership qualities, and you've done that for your club side as well in England as well. So you have experience when it comes to leadership and all that stuff. But during your career thus far, you've been involved in some special moments, like hitting the six off the last ball to win against the Netherlands. And you said that was the start of people taking the Italy women's cricket team seriously as contenders. And that was during the European Cricket League T10 match. Italy won by 7 wickets, of course. You were chasing 99. You scored 29 not out of 13 balls and player of the match, and the celebrations were crazy. It was like a football match with everyone running onto the pitch. All the girls were hugging you and embracing you. It was fantastic. I watched the highlights of that, and I'm going to leave a link to that in the description of this episode. Check it out, everyone. Check out Emilia's match-winning innings to win the game for the Italy women's team. It's unbelievable. It was in the slot too. Actually, it was in the spot, so definitely had to go for 6.
It was quite funny that over, because I didn't actually realise until Reggie told me, like, 6 to win off the last ball, and I was like, oh, I should probably hit it for 6 then, shouldn't I?
Yes. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, and just what you were thinking in your thought process, because it's very interesting talking to people, especially cricketers, when they're in that situation of hitting the winning runs. So that could benefit people watching this episode if you're in that sort of situation. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. And then also you played an innings that you remember fondly against Germany in the Women's T20 World Cup qualifiers, which you look back on as a proud moment in your career. And I'm sure you'll tell us about that as well in just a moment. And then in 2022, you made your debut for Italy against Norway. And that was in the Women's T20 Pentangular Series in Spain, which Italy won the tournament as well. They won the whole tournament, which was great. Do you remember much from that game? I'm going to run through some stats here for you and test your memory. Obviously, Italy won by 110 runs, obviously. You made 146 for 4, and Norway were bowled out for 36. So you won convincingly. You batted at number 5 and made 8 not out of 10. And then with the ball, you had figures of none for 3 from 3 overs and contributed in a run out. So that's not a bad debut. Reasonable, not flashy numbers, but the team won, and that's more important. You know, these memories stick in your mind forever. So, Emilia, tell us that moment when you realised that you would be in the team and were to become an international cricketer, because that's always a special feeling, a moment when you realise that I've made it and going to make my debut and be a part of the team going forward. Just take us back to that memory that you had when you first realised that you were about to become an international cricketer.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit crazy, really, because I was kind of happy where I was at with my cricket at that point. Not in terms of, like, I don't think I'd reached my potential, but I was sort of like, okay, you know, cricket's my passion. I'm going to try and play it for as long as I can. But like, I acknowledge that like county cricket's going to be my limit. I'm not going to play franchise cricket. You know, I'm getting towards my late 20s and like, you know, other things get prioritized and whatever. So I wasn't really looking for it necessarily. It kind of happened a bit by chance. And then to meet Prabhath, the coach, who was basically like, you can play forever. Like, what do you mean? Like, you're like, why would age be a problem? And for the team, I mean, the Italy team are just the most incredibly welcoming group of girls. Like, I think in England, we get possibly because the stakes are higher in a way, you know, when you get to a professional level, like there's so much competition and there are so many amazing players now that there's competition between teammates. And I think in a lot of teams that creates a kind of area of like, well, if you're doing well, it means I'm not doing well. And that's a bit of a hard dynamic, I think, to navigate, especially when there's lots of teenagers. But the Italy team are just not like that at all. They celebrate everything and everyone, and they're really like team conscious. And that for me was a really refreshing environment to go into, to just be like, oh my God, everyone wants everyone to do really well, regardless of like what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I feel very lucky to have gone into international cricket with a team like that.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what it's all about. It's about being a part of a team, isn't it? Helping each other out and supporting each other. And I suppose humbleness and humility are big values that I've noticed from what you have said. And I think we lose sight of that sometimes, is that, you know, we just got to be grateful for what we have. Italy are not a well-developed cricketing country. They're an associate country, which is the bottom line, really. But they want to play more cricket. They want to be the best they can. They want to keep playing cricket. The women's team want to keep playing more to get better. They want to qualify for tournaments, ICC level or various other tournaments that you partake in. And they just want everyone to do well. That you don't think of anyone differently. You treat everyone equally, which is, I think it's fantastic to have those core values and instill them in the team. And I'm sure that the team talks about that all the time, which is, as you said, refreshing to hear, but also fantastic that it's a healthy environment. It's not a toxic environment. It's you know, a very happy environment to be a part of, which is fantastic. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we talked about that hitting that six off the last ball against the Dutch. Talk us through it. From your perspective, you were batting, the team lost 3 wickets, something like that on the score. You were chasing 99, which is, you know, you should be able to get that target. But what people need to realize, this is a T10. It's a bit different than a T20. You got 10 less overs. So every ball means something in that situation. You got to score off it. So just talk us through that moment of coming down to the last ball. You hit a few boundaries and then came down to 6 to win off the last ball. Talk us through that moment of, oh, geez, I got to hit this for 6. Otherwise, if I hit it for 4 or something, we don't win. So I've got to hit it for 6. So just talk us through that moment. Because when I was watching the highlights, you dealt with that pretty calmly, I thought. Looking from afar, you were like relaxed and you didn't really think about anything too much. You saw the ball, it was in the slot. And to be fair, it wasn't a great ball. So you swung hard and managed to get it over the long off boundary for 6. And hit the winning runs, and everyone went crazy. And it was, I just love watching that. It's wonderful. And in your mind, that probably wasn't happening. You were probably turning the screws around and saying, "Oh, geez, how am I gonna premeditate, or I'm just gonna watch the ball, see the ball, and play accordingly? If I don't hit a 6, it's all right. It's not the end of the world. But if you hit a 6, and that's great." So just talk us through that mindset that you have when you're dealing with that sort of situation in a game.
I think, well, batting is maybe 80% mentality, really. I think this is what I've come to learn. And 20%, well, 19% technique and a bit of luck. I think, so going into the final over, we had 18 to get off the final over.
Yeah.
And I just sort of, I was batting with Reggie. It was actually her debut tournament. And I just sort of thought, and this is probably not the right mindset to have, but I just sort of thought 18 off the last over, like, it's just not going to happen. So I wasn't like that wound up about it, because I was like, I can bat freely, because it, like, the outcome is almost decided already, because we're not going to get, like, this is the Netherlands. They're an established, high performing team. Their bowlers are very experienced. They're very good. And like, I didn't count really myself as a batter at the time. And so I just played the over, just very chill. And then on the last ball, Regina comes down the wicket to me and says, "Emilia, you realise it's 6 to win?" And I was like, "No, have not been paying attention. Definitely didn't know that." And then I was like, "Oh, I'm going to actually need to like hit it for 6, aren't I?" And so you can't really tell in the video, but I basically thought to myself, I was like, okay, what are you going to do? How are you going to hit this for 6? And I thought, I'm just going to plant my feet, watch the ball, and swing at it as hard as I can. And I think this is where the luck comes in the sense that, like, yeah, I had to hit it well, but she had to bowl that ball for me to be able to hit that for 6. Yes. So it did kind of come together. But I mean, you still have to hit it. And I know a lot of people have been like, well, the boundaries are small and la-di-da-di-da. It's like, yeah, but still have to connect and hit it for 6. And I think the reaction was because it was the first time that Italy realised that they were actually quite good. And, they could, as they can do it against good teams, professional teams. And I don't think they'd had that belief before. And I think that it kind of switched the mindset of like, oh yeah, actually, like, we're good, we can do this. And that was really, and I think that's where the emotion came out so much, just because it was almost like a relief of like, okay, we're contenders now, we can do this.
Yeah, definitely. It galvanizes a team, doesn't it? In those situations, whenever you're facing those particular situations in games, and that resilience, it's not over till it's over. We still got to believe, even if the odds are against us, which they were in that situation, 18 off the last over. So you got to hit a few boundaries and just hope that the ball's in the right areas to pick the gaps and get runs. And it worked out in the end well, and you were able to do that. So I will leave a link to that in the description of this episode, because it's pretty chaotic. It was pretty cool just to see that on video, and the team running onto the field like a bunch of football hooligans, as they do when they run on the pitch and celebrate a goal or something like that. No, it was fantastic. That's what cricket's about. And do you remember much from that moment? As soon as you connected it, as soon as you hit it for 6, do you remember anything after that, or is it just a blur?
Oh, I was just like, I cannot believe I've just done that. Like, such a good feeling. Yeah, such a good feeling. And then like Reggie was like bouncing her way down the wicket, and everyone was like running. Yeah, it was a really good moment.
It would have been, and it certainly was, judging by the reaction of the team and the celebrations. And then you also mentioned the innings against Germany. So just talk us through about that in a bit more context, if you may. Why is that innings that you regard as one of the best that you've played in your career thus far?
Yeah. So going into that tournament, Italy don't play a lot of matches, or historically, because they don't have much match experience. So what we tend to find is that the start of the tournaments is kind of like, oh yeah, like kind of getting back into that mindset of playing matches rather than just doing like training. Skills-based training is great, and like you can recreate certain situations, but you can't really recreate the match. So beginning of, if you have like a week-long tournament, the beginning of the tournament, people just take a little bit of time to get back into cricket and get their lines and lengths and see the ball, all that sort of stuff. Whereas at the end of the tournament, there's such a massive difference, and you can see the skills and the player. So we'd started off the tournament with like a horrific loss to Jersey. We were like 30 something all. I mean, it was just poor cricket. It's one of those, cricket's like that, isn't it? It's so cruel. And so it was a must-win match for us in order to allow us a chance to go to Div 1, and then the result basically then decided on the next match with France. So it's a must-win match, and one of our openers, Delisha, she'd batted really well for the start and put us in a really, really good position, but then got herself, I can't remember how she was out, but basically it was up to me to finish the match. I think I was one of the last kind of established batters, and I think while the Netherlands was kind of like it was like a big moment, I wasn't stressed about it because I wasn't thinking about it. Whereas the Germany match, I was like, I need to do this for the team. And so I played well. I hit a few sixes and just hitting, I hit the winning run. I just hit a single and we ran and we won. And it was just a really, really good feeling, because to be able to finish that match after a really good start and win. And again, you can't see it. You can't see it on the ICC highlights, and they're probably not available anymore. But me and Chatul, who I was batting with, we literally just like sprint off the field and we just meet the rest of the Italy team. And then there's like a dance circle and all sorts. And it was a really good moment because it was ICC World Cup. Like there was more riding on it as well to get into
definitely.
So for me, and because I've been going through changes with my bowling and my batting as well, just to try and improve my technique, it was quite a stressful lead up to it as well. And so it was kind of like a big release moment, I suppose. So that was really good.
Definitely. All the hard work paid off in that moment.
Exactly.
And so it's always a nice feeling when you take the winning wicket or the winning run and you score that. It's a nice feeling. It's not nice when you don't do that. As you said, cricket can be a cruel game. It can be. But when it comes off, it's very relieving and satisfying, really. So I can see why you've rated that as one of your best innings that you've played, and you should be proud of that, definitely, especially a T20 World Cup qualifier. As you said, the stakes are high. You want to try and progress and try and get up the rankings as well, because as we'll talk about a bit later on with Women's Associate Cricket, that's how it all works, rankings and funding and all that stuff, complicated stuff. But definitely you should be proud of that innings. And it's a shame that we don't have any video of it or whatsoever, but we can only go back to scorecards and look and see the result, which is a shame, really. It was good to hear your thoughts on those two standout performances for you, hitting the six, scoring the winning runs against Germany. Obviously, sorry, Tina. If you're listening, we interviewed Tina Goff from Germany a few weeks ago on the podcast. She was on the losing side in that game, but no hard feelings at the end of the day. It's all played in good spirit as it is cricket. No hard feelings there. So it was good to hear that about, your introduction into playing international cricket, really, becoming an international cricketer, and it sort of just happened by chance. You weren't really setting out to do that. Just tell us mainly, do you have any connections family-wise with Italy, or you had to go through a different process to qualify, residency, all that stuff? Just talk us through the connection that you have with Italy as a country.
So my mum's Italian. So I've had an Italian passport from birth, and I grew up spending all of summer and all of Christmas in Italy. So I consider myself, half Italian, and I speak Italian. I'm firmly embedded in the culture, and I consider Italy my home just as much as I do the UK. I didn't know anything about Italy cricket though. I knew there was cricket in Italy because my dad had played. He actually founded Verona Cricket Club back in the 80s, I think. So I knew it was there, and I'd seen people play, but I just didn't think that there would be a national women's team until one of the guys who plays for the men's, Marcus Campagnano, he happened to be stepping in as a coach for our women's team here, and I heard him talk about it, and I was like, oh, could you put me in touch, if there's a federation, and it's an organized thing. So he did, and then it went from there. So total fluke.
Yeah, well, I suppose good things happen for a reason, do they? And you were just in the right place at the right time, and it happens. So that's good to hear that as well, because that's like with many associate players, isn't it? They always have parents from one country or the other, or they go over and play for a country to qualify residency under the ICC regulations. I think it's 3 years or something like that you have to qualify for.
Yeah.
To play for that particular country. So yeah, many players have different pathways into playing for associate nations around the world, whereas others have an easier pathway because your family's from that country and you can qualify straight away to play, whereas others have to go through that qualification period just to play cricket, which is what people will do to pursue their dreams, I suppose. And you don't blame them for doing that because they just want to play cricket and enjoy this great game, which is fantastic. Now, outside of cricket, Emilia, you do different things than cricket, obviously. You're a physio and you work at the health service over there in England, helping people, which is fantastic in your role that you do as a profession. So how important is it for you to maintain a healthy balance between cricket and real life? And tell us a bit more about your job and what you do.
So at the moment I work with people with neuromuscular conditions, so degenerative conditions of muscle loss, basically. But my background is in brain injury rehab. It's tricky, it is tricky working full time. I'm lucky that I have a team that will support me and kind of understands that cricket is a priority, and I will need to take all of my annual leave just during cricket tournaments because that's how it is. It's hard. This is where associate cricket's hard because there's not the funding in it to sustain yourself. You just can't. I think Italy is one of the only countries that pay their players, so we get paid per tournament. It's not enough to sustain you, but it's a lot more compared to a lot of other places. So that we consider ourselves incredibly lucky to be paid when we're playing. It's difficult to juggle. It is, and with playing a lot of cricket here as well. You do get a bit consumed by it. And I think every individual has a threshold of what they're able to manage in kind of day to day. I think because my work are really supportive, and just the type of work that I'm doing at the moment, it's okay. But then I don't know, ask me again in December, when I've been doing it for a year. I don't know, because I had a year out because I wanted to go traveling a bit. So I went traveling, and so I was much more free to play in my first year with Italy cricket. and I could be flexible and I could go and train, whereas now I've lost all flexibility. But credit to the Italy team that they've given us the whole tournament, like all of our tournaments for the year. So it's much better now in terms of organisation and stuff and planning, which has been a lifesaver for me.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But it's also important to keep that perspective as well, isn't it? That cricket's not the be-all, end-all. It's just part of my journey as an international cricketer. But there are more important things other than cricket at the end of the day. It's just a game at the end of the day. It's not life and death or the be-all, end-all. So it's important to have that perspective and not get consumed by it, as you mentioned. And maybe I'm guilty of that as well. We're all cricket tragics deep inside, are we? And we love cricket so much, but there is a limit, and then you just have to switch off for a bit and not burn out. And that's, we see a lot of people with mental health issues in cricket pull out in various levels of cricket, men and female, because the burden is just too much in terms of being an international cricketer. With the state of international cricket at the moment, if you're a full member country player, and all these tournaments around the world like IPL, T20 franchises, international cricket calendar, you can get burned out. And, it's very important to keep that healthy balance between real life and cricket. So you're managing to do that, which is great. And you have a good supportive workplace that are very supportive of you to pursue your dreams and ambitions, because they know that's your goal, really, to play cricket or represent a country at a professional level, which you do with the Italy women's team. So thanks for sharing that with us in terms of that balance between your profession and playing cricket. Many players have mentors, Emilia, and they turn to when they are struggling and they need help within the game of cricket. And many people have helped you on your cricketing journey, I'm sure. So who have been the mentors that you've turned to in your cricket career when you're struggling, you need help? Who are the people that you first pick up the phone and ring and say, I need a bit of help here?
Good question. I think probably Ros Porter, because she's been a kind of constant. And then also, so she has two daughters that also play, and I've played with them for a long time. And it's always good, I think, to have like the peer support. And I think that's probably what I lean on more so than like a mentor. I think I'm someone who prefers to speak to people that I play with. I don't think Oxfordshire's always been great at consistency of coaching for their women's team. And so we've had a lot of different coaches over the past few years, which I guess is great if you don't like one of them. But you never kind of build that rapport. I mean, at the moment we've got a great coach, Ed Wilson, who's very open and you could talk to, but that's not always been the case historically. I've been playing for a long time, so you can go way back. But I think it's important for clubs to acknowledge that there always needs to be someone that players can turn to. It doesn't need to be the coach necessarily. And I think that's where senior players become really important as well, because there's always implications if you speak to a coach.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be, don't get me wrong, there shouldn't be. But especially as a player, if you're trying to get to a higher level, there's so much competition that I guess you could view having difficulties as a way to, that means that someone else has an edge over you if you're struggling with something. So I think having peer support is really important, because you can be really much more open with a peer than maybe you can a coach. That's how I feel anyway.
Definitely. I couldn't agree more with that. Obviously, players don't like to talk to coaches or selectors in the first place, because obviously they feel threatened by their spot, and they may be struggling a bit out of form. And you speak to a coach or a selector, and you're like, oh, I don't really want to speak to you because you're making my decision based on whether I should be in the team or not, and I'm not really performing well, or you have to be left out for this particular reason. So yeah, I can understand that apprehensiveness from certain players. But it was good to hear that some of the people that you lean on to, and I'm sure that's the same for the women's side in Italy as well. People can speak to you, and we'll talk about that a bit later on with the team and your role as vice captain and that leadership position. Now, over your career, be it a short career at this stage, but you've played with and against some of the best players in the world, played at some of the most iconic grounds in world cricket, and been to so many countries while playing cricket. So, Emilia, if you had to choose your favourite player to play with and against, your favourite ground, and your favourite country that you've played cricket in, what will they be? I know that's a bit of a mouthful, but if you can try and answer those questions, that would be great.
As in favourite player I've ever played with, or if I could pick
it can be your favourite player that you've played with or against in the world. Your favourite ground that you've played cricket at on your travels, and your favourite country that you've toured in your cricket journey.
Whoa, that's a tricky question, that one.
Yeah, it is a tricky one. People do struggle on this one. It's like picking your favourite child. So, but try and answer it the best way you can. So,
gosh, that is
like
tricky.
Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? We should have the music.
Yeah, I know, right? It's tricky because there's some grounds that hold like more of an emotional attachment to, right? Like I used to play for Charlbury Cricket Club for their men's, and like my best bowling figures is on their first team ground, and like I have a lot of really good memories there. And it's just a lovely ground. So if anyone's ever in Charlbury, that cricket ground's lovely. So that, I think that holds a really there's a place in my heart for Charlbury Cricket Club and their ground for sure. I have played a little bit in Sri Lanka. I went on tour there with the Charlbury women's side, and there's a ground that I think it's in one of the schools that's like by a big mountain that has like a massive Buddha on it that kind of like overlooks the ground. That was a pretty special experience as well. So that's definitely up there. In terms of players, I think I'd really like to bowl at like Joe Root or something, just to see what would happen. Probably
ramp you. He'd probably ramp you.
Yeah, I know he wouldn't. It'd be really annoying, wouldn't it? Maybe not him then. Take someone else. I don't know, just to see what would happen, just to have an opportunity to like bowl against like a really, really good batter, and just just as an experience. And then, I'd love to play at Lord's, and I know that's never going to happen, but I think that would just be a really special moment.
Yeah, definitely.
But I mean, it's not going to happen. So
dare to dream, as they say. Dare to dream.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to see a women's test match played at Lord's. Like that. That would just go and watch would be great.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure.
I think that might be happening this year.
Oh, is it? Well,
you'll have to fact check me, but
yes, we'll have to do some research on that. But if that's the case, then that's very good from the ECB's point of view, because women's test match has been going on since 1934, so they've been around for a very long time. It's good to see more and more popping up as well, which is fantastic for the women's game. And we'll talk about a little bit about that later on when we talk about women's associate cricket and women's cricket in general. But going back to this question, did you have a favourite country that you've toured in?
I don't know. Playing in Spain is really nice, I must say. I wouldn't say I've been to that many places. I think this year we're going to go and play in the Netherlands, which will be good because I've not been there yet. But the Spain grounds are really good. I mean, the Desert Springs ground that's a really good track. I know there's a lot of places, like I've got them on Instagram. There's a lot of teams now that are going out there and doing like their pre-season training there.
Yes.
It's a really good track, and I've got some good
Yeah.
memories there of like debuting, and the weather's always really nice. Which is...
Yes, it is. It is. It is. Yes.
Yeah.
Especially at the cold misery of the English weather.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes, definitely. We actually spoke to Spain. Actually, we spoke to the CEO of Cricket Spain, John Howden. He spoke about that, about England teams and counties coming over to Spain to play some cricket, some warm-up matches before the season starts to get out of the cold.
Yeah.
So I can see why people want to go to Spain. Nice holiday as well. See the sights, play a bit of cricket. Yeah, lovely country. Quite jealous, actually, that people get those opportunities to go over there and play cricket. You can sit back on a chair and enjoy what Spain has to offer, I suppose. But thank you for answering that. I know it's a bit of a mouthful. Every time I ask that question to people that we have on the podcast, they always struggle. They say, "Oh, that's a tough one," but you managed it well. So thanks for answering that. I really appreciate that. So your career isn't done yet. It's only just started, and you still have more to offer the game and for the Italy women's cricket team as well. So, Emilia, do you ever take a moment to reflect on your journey, and what are you most proud of, and do you have any regrets?
Yeah, I do reflect quite a lot on it, because I think I'm probably the best cricketer I ever have been now.
Yeah.
And I sort of think, if I'd have known what I know now when I was like 15, like, could I have gone pro in the UK, blah, blah, blah. But I think at the time, like when I think back, I think you realize that you have to either be, like a once in a generation talent, or you have to know the right people. And when I was 15, that was definitely the case, because women's cricket was not as there just wasn't the same kind of competition and things. And then also when I went to uni, I just didn't know how to. So I went to uni in London, but I just didn't know like how to connect to the right people. So obviously Oxfordshire is a minor county. So if I'd have gone to play for like Middlesex or Surrey, then would things have been different? Like, well, maybe. And like, so there's always the like what ifs. But I think I also know a lot of people who that's ruined the game for them a bit. And I think on balance, I would rather play a lower standard of cricket and just enjoy it and play, village cricket and have a laugh and play till I'm 50. I would much rather have that than start resenting cricket for whatever reason, because you're in that kind of, professional scene and it's a lot, and there's always a lot of pressure, and life gets a bit mad. Yeah, lots of hypotheticals, I know, but I'm really enjoying playing for Italy, and I'm enjoying the coaching I'm getting and the opportunities that come with it, and I think I really appreciate that, and and I think that's a great place to be. Definitely.
I couldn't agree more. Just grateful for the opportunities that you have. And I'm happy. I'm satisfied. I've achieved what I've achieved. And if there's plenty more things to achieve and do, then I'll do them. And then look back when I retire and say, yeah, I was pretty happy with that. Pretty happy with my career. Pretty happy I did this. Happy that I hit 6 runs to win the game against the Dutch. Hitting the winning runs against, the German side. So, definitely. It's always good to reflect on the journey and be proud of what you've achieved, and I think you should. You've done a lot throughout your career. What advice would you give to any young girls who want to play cricket or sport, or have ambitions of playing cricket or sport at the highest level? What advice would you give them?
I think it's tricky, because my advice would be you have to enjoy it. And I'm not saying like every single moment of everything you do cricket related you have to enjoy, because like you're not going to enjoy the 3-hour journey that you have to do to play in like a field in Norfolk or whatever. Not that I have anything against Norfolk, it's just really far away from Oxford. You know, and like the strength and conditioning stuff that you have to do in the background, and like you're probably not going to enjoy every session, and you know, there'll probably be a whole season where you don't score any runs and everything is awful. So like, I'm not saying that everything has to be like roses all the time, but I think when you think about cricket, it has to be like a positive thought. If you start thinking about, well, I guess any sport, I think if you start thinking about your sport and you just think, oh my God, like, no, then like, is it worth it?
Yeah.
Like, what do you do it? Like, is playing at a high level worth that? I don't know. I would argue it's not, but I haven't reached like Italy associate cricket. I think is like a different level to like, you know, playing for England or playing for, you know, some of the franchises. Yeah. So I can't reflect on, you know, the sacrifices that people have to make to get there. But I think if you're in a headspace where you're not enjoying it and you're suffering, I don't think that's ever worth it.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. I think that's good advice. If you enjoy it, then pursue it and have fun. But if you're not enjoying it, then do something else. Maybe it's not for you.
Yeah.
Pursue other passions.
Take a break. Do a sport. You know, come back round to it. Do something else. Coach for a bit. You know, get a different perspective on the game. You know, change. You know, it's life is for living and having fun and enjoying and exploring. And if you're not enjoying it, then something's wrong.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's good advice there to any aspiring female athlete or cricketer that wants to take up the sport. Just enjoy it, have fun. That's the reason we play, is to have fun and enjoy it. You know, that's the reason we play. And as soon as you lose that, then you're not having fun. You're not enjoying it. It's miserable. You know, I think we lose sight of that from all different levels of cricket, really, even international cricket, even with the professionals. They forget that too. Yeah, I've sacrificed a lot to be here, but why am I playing this game? It's like Joe Root. I think Joe Root said that. He said, I play the game with a smile on my face because I think like I'm a kid again, you know, like I was playing for my local club growing up. I'm just that Joe Root, having fun, batting, bowling, fielding, whatever. So I think that's a good piece of advice and perspective to have on the game, definitely. Emilia, I thought we'd talk about the Italy women's cricket team. That's the reason we got you on for a chat today, to talk about the women's team. And it'd be good to gain your insights on the women's team and learn more about their achievements, the players' stories, because many of the players come from diverse backgrounds. And the team has come on leaps and bounds over the years in its short journey. It's only been playing women's T20 nationals for 3 years. It first played in 2021. And they've toured some countries along the way, and they've played in tournaments and participated in them, like the ICC T20 Women's World Cup qualifiers every now and again, as an example of those tournaments. So, Emilia, for those who may not know a lot about the Italy women's cricket team, can you tell us more about them, the players, and some of the stories from the team?
Yeah, so the history of it, like the actual team, does go back. I couldn't tell you how many years, but, 10, 15 maybe. And they were kind of, the federation was kind of involved for a bit, and then it dropped off. And the captain, actually, Kumudu, she carried the team through the years when they had less federation support. And they self-funded one of their tours, and she kept them going and kept them training with support from like the more senior players. And then more recently, when the federation kind of got re-involved with the team and they brought in Prabhath, who is the current coach, that's when there was more structure in place, there was more training in place, and that's kind of when they started to get much stronger. They're mostly, not all, but mostly from a Sri Lankan heritage, and there's a large Sri Lankan population in Italy. And they've been the driving force really for a lot of the cricket. And some of them are very experienced cricketers. So one of the players, Sharon, she played for Sri Lanka before she moved to Italy, and then has been kind of instrumental in the kind of batting of the Italy women. And I think what's really nice is that now that the national team is much more established and has had some successes, it's kind of like we're seeing the younger generation come through now. So this year, the squad is bigger. We're including, the next generation, and they're starting to come through, and they're really good. And I think that's the next step. So can we make it sustainable? Can we start thinking about going into schools, making it a bit more mainstream? Can we make sure that the infrastructure is in place, so that there are enough grounds for the kids to play in? All of that sort of stuff is, it's the next step. And it's a long one and it's a tricky one. But I think now that the national team is established and succeeding, that's there's something to aim for. And so everything else will hopefully fall into place from there.
Definitely. In terms of the team as a whole in general, since you've been a part of the setup, have you noticed improvement in the team from when you were involved to now, in terms of how the team's gone about their work ethic and wanting to strive to be better and improve from each game? Have you noticed a different change of mindset since you've come in?
Yeah, definitely. I think the match experience has really helped. Having regular tournaments has been really helpful. And, we meet up in Rome and have regular training sessions. Every Friday we meet as a team to discuss kind of tactics, skills, that sort of thing. And then we're all doing strength and conditioning work in the background. And I think that's been a big thing as well, just like fitness, strength and conditioning. It's really important at this level of cricket, because that's often the different, if you've got a fielding team that's fit and catches all their catches and is strong in the field, you're already a step above a lot of the associate levels. Yeah. And so that's something that we've worked really hard on and pushed. And I think you can see it in our last tournament that we played in December. You can see that we're kind of the top of the associate teams, but slightly below the very established ones like Scotland, Netherlands. Yeah. So we're kind of in between there. But I think the work that we've done on our fielding and our basics and our strength and our tactics just gives us that edge now. Yeah.
Definitely. Absolutely. And obviously fielding's a big part of cricket. So if you can be good in your fielding, that sets the tone and the presence, and the intensity. And if you can create pressure in the field, take your chances, half chances, or create chances, then you're going to be very successful, and especially in associate cricket more broadly, not just the females, but the males as well. The good fielding sides can often put pressure on the opposition and will win generally most of their games because of that, because the other team hasn't really worked on that as much. But in associate cricket, everyone's ranked differently. It's all a bit of a mismatch at the moment. So everyone's at various different levels of skill. In terms of the rankings, where are Italy placed at the moment in the women's rankings when it comes to associate cricket?
I haven't looked recently. We're probably 20-something.
That's not bad.
I actually haven't looked. I also don't really know how the rankings work, and I can't figure out why you'd be above, or you can beat a team but still be below them. I don't know. Maybe someone would explain it to me properly, but I can't figure it out.
Yeah, well, it is complicated with the ICC formula that they use. So that's promising if that's the case. We may need to check that and see where Italy's actually placed. But
yeah, please do.
yeah, we do. So mention that in the comments if you're watching this episode of the podcast. That'll be much appreciated. But yeah, it's good. It's encouraging signs that the team are wanting to learn and get better, and you have the right people behind the scenes, and in terms of tournaments like T20 World Cup qualifiers and that. What's the ambitions, the goals when it comes to qualifying events for the team? What do you want to try to achieve in those tournaments? Is it to show steady improvement from tournament to tournament and not think too far ahead about the end result, just focus on the here and now?
Yeah, I think the goal is to compete against like the next level. So I think in the next 2-3 years we should be consistently beating teams like the Netherlands. That's the goal. I think because now we will be playing them more, we'll be playing higher level teams more. I think there'll be a period where we end up losing quite a lot just because we're playing at a high level. And you need that as a team to develop, like you need to be playing better teams. So I think it's about then finding that balance of we're playing better teams. That doesn't mean we're worse just because we're losing more. It just means that we're developing us. But I think at the same time, we almost need to keep the national team at the same level or steadily improving. And we need to build the foundations below that and in terms of the pathways up just to make it sustainable. So I think that'll be the next few years of work that I think the better you get as a team, the smaller the margins are to improve, if that makes sense. So, we've improved quite quickly and we've made quite a bold statement and quite like a sharp progression. And I think you can't carry on in that kind of trajectory. It needs to be like more, it's going to be slower now because, you play better teams and the margins for improvement are smaller. But the foundations are really important now to build structure within Italy itself as well.
Definitely. Yeah. That's very positive to hear. Obviously, you're going to have a period of success, which the team has already experienced, and then you're going to go on that crash and hit the bottom. But then you're going to get back up again. It's just about that process in cricket, and all teams go through it. That's the natural cycle of a cricket team, especially if you have older players or players who are about to retire, and then the younger players are coming through. So that's very promising to hear. Do the public get behind the team? Have you noticed that from people in Italy when the team's playing? Do you get that support from them?
I think outside of the communities that already play cricket, not a huge amount. There was some things in the paper about like the winners of the national championships and things. There's, it's getting there. There's, I think it will get there. But as in within the communities that support the team, I mean, they're amazing. They're incredible. So yeah, no, it's been really good.
Yeah, definitely. Very encouraging to hear that. Now, I thought we talk about your role in the team and being vice captain. Obviously, now, as we mentioned before, you've been in that role for 6 months. And how would you best describe your role in the team as a player? How do you fit into the whole setup?
I think what I bring is match experience. That's the biggest difference. And so that brings a level of calm, because it's when you play a lot of cricket, it's another match it's like another match. Like you kind of know that when you're batting, you probably fail just as much as you succeed, and you know that because you play loads of cricket. And I think when compared to the girls who don't play as much, that's where I can help them, because to them, if they're only playing one tournament, there are a lot more kind of rides on their innings, but that doesn't mean that you end up being more successful in them. It just means you play less. And also, like tactically and things like that, being able to, change the field and have those discussions with the captain and, bring experience to the team, I think has been quite valuable to them.
Yep.
And then obviously, like, I bat and bowl and field, which is helpful too.
Yeah, that helps. That helps if you can bat or bowl or field, which you do. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did you do a bit of wicket keeping as well?
Oh God, never again. It's my life. Our keeper was sick. Our reserve keeper had broken her finger.
Ooh.
Yeah. And so it was basically between me and Regina, because we were the only ones that had like an understanding of keeping.
Yeah.
And she was bowling much better than me. And because she was our spin option, it just made sense. And so I ended up keeping, and I'm just not very good at it, and I just don't really enjoy it, and I'm really hoping I never have to do it again.
Yes. Well, I did look at that in your stats, and I said, "Oh, you've kept wicket a little bit,"
Yeah.
and it makes sense now as a replacement. But if you had a substitute that was a keeper as well, that would have been quite handy, because that's what you can do in the laws now. If you have a substitute fielder, you can have them as a keeper. So that would have been fine if you had a substitute who can keep, but obviously you didn't. So you had to put on the gloves and the pads and stand behind the stumps and make sure you don't drop anything. I think you caught 2 catches or got 2 dismissals or something. I can't remember.
I've blocked it out of my memory, if I'm honest.
It was a traumatic experience, nonetheless.
I'd rather
never get to keep wicket. But you're going to get that with keepers. They're always going to break a finger. And, is she all good now with the finger?
No, all fine. Yeah,
fantastic to hear that. Maybe she will be giving you some lessons on keeping. Maybe in her understudy.
I'm just going to bowl. It's fine. I'll just be a bowler.
Yeah, just bowl. Just run up. Put your marker down. Just run up and bowl. Exactly. And bat. Yeah, I'll come in. Bat where I'm supposed to bat. Hit the ball. See the ball. React to it. Don't let me do keeping ever again. It's one of those difficult jobs in cricket. Behind the stumps. Got to be flexible. Got to be flexible. Got to move right and left and over your head as well. Sort of like a goalkeeper in soccer. Really.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. And we mentioned before you became vice captain 6 months ago. Now everyone knows that being the captain or the vice captain of any cricket team is one of the most challenging jobs to do. There's so many things that you need to think about. So, Emilia, tell us about your vice captaincy journey. And how do you balance your vice captain and player role within the team? So just take us through those.
I mean, I have captained quite a lot over the years, so it's not something that I consider a burden. Like it, as in it doesn't add to my stress when I play. So I think it's nice to, as a senior player, to have that responsibility and be able to like be a leader within the team, and for the girls to look up to me. Like I say, it doesn't change the way I play, and it doesn't really affect I put the same amount of pressure on myself as a player, regardless of whether I'm in a leadership capacity, because I expect that from myself. And I don't think anyone will ever expect more from my game than I will. And like I said, it's nice to be able to bring the experience to the team. And so I enjoy it. I think it's great.
Yeah, definitely. You sort of relish the role. Whereas other people, they don't like captaincy or vice captaincy. It just puts a burden on them. It's just too much stress and pressure. But it is handy to have leadership qualities, and you've had that experience. Obviously, playing for your local club side over there in the UK, being captain over there for your side, and translating that as a player in this women's team for Italy, it really does help. And are you a type of leader that likes to be hands-on in terms of talking to people, or do you let people do their own business, and if they have any questions, come to me and I'll be happy to answer them? Oh, sorry. I'll try and get that out again. Muddled up my words. Try to answer those questions if anyone has any questions that they may want to ask you. So what type of leader are you? Hands-on or just laid back and just let everyone do their business?
I'm fairly laid back. I think people thrive when they're allowed to be curious and express themselves and know that you've got their back. Having said that, not everyone is happy or feels like they can come up, you have to have a certain level of confidence to go up to someone and, tell them something or talk about your issues or whatever it is. So I think it's important when you're leading in any leadership capacity to recognize the people that maybe won't be as open. And in that case, then I will be the one to initiate. And also, I think if you're trying to build a certain type of culture within a team, then especially if you're trying to change a culture, then you need to be a bit more proactive and, call out things that you don't want to see or set expectations of the kind of team you want to build and that sort of thing. So it does depend on the situation, but I'd hope to be in a team where people are happy to express themselves as players. That's kind of the ultimate goal.
Yeah, definitely. And also with the team as well, in terms of the culture, a good thing that you mentioned that word culture. In terms of the nationalities, not everyone's from Italy originally. They're all from different other countries. That's what you get in associate cricket, is that people come from different parts of the world. So the language barrier. So what does the team, do they employ a policy that everyone speaks Italian or English? So how does the team go about the cultural side in terms of making sure that everyone has a say and a voice within the team and gets understood and heard? So what's that policy regarding that?
Italy are really good about that, actually. So like I said, most of the team is Sri Lankan, but when we have our full squad, the language has to be English because it's the only language that everyone understands and speaks. Sometimes it's easier if the language is Italian for a particular group of people because their Italian's better. Sometimes things will be explained in two different languages because, some people's Italian or English, when you get to like the technical language of cricket, like Italian is not a good language for cricket because it doesn't have any of the technical stuff. It doesn't have any language for cricket. So it ends up being a mix of English and like Sinhalese and it gets a bit complicated, but it works. Like I've never felt like I've been excluded, or I don't think people feel like they're excluded because of language, and because it's quite an open culture, people will ask if they don't understand. My Sri Lankan is always also getting quite good, so I have learned a few key phrases, which has been really good fun.
Definitely, absolutely. Bilingual. Different languages, yes. Well, I think that's just what the game of cricket is, isn't it? Different nationalities, different cultures, and different languages. And well, cricket is a universal language anyway. If you see someone playing cricket, then you understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's just the way the game is, and it's fantastic that we have that sort of connection with each other when it comes to that, from different cultures, and we can understand a common language, and that's the game of cricket. Despite if you can't speak English as your first language, cricket is a great way to interpret what you're trying to get across and your point. So that's fantastic with the women's team, that they are making everyone included and making sure everyone understands what is going on. So that's the battle with many associate countries, male or female, is that they have many different cultures and nationalities. So they try and make everyone feel a part and be a part of the team, which is fantastic. In terms of the leadership, captaincy, vice captaincy, any tips you would give for any young cricket captains out there, or any young leaders who are embarking on a leadership position? Any advice would you give to them?
I think leadership is all about people. I think if you can create an environment where people are happy, and that means you have to communicate well. I think you have to be authentic. You have to, be transparent about things. In all sport, you're going to select a team, and that means people would be disappointed. But if you can be transparent in how you do that, and stand behind your decisions, then I think that prevents people being resentful. You're always going to get people that you can do everything right, and they'll still be annoyed. But on the whole, it's the people you have around you, and that's what you need to build and curate. The cricket is almost secondary. That it's important to set your fields, understand your bowlers, make sure that you're setting the right fields and reacting to the game appropriately, and that you've got a plan and things like that. Like, yeah, but you can learn those skills. There's loads of people you can talk to about those skills. You can talk to your coach before the game. You can chat to your senior players during the game. Like, that's, I'm not saying that's easy, because it's not. It's complex, but it's a learnable skill and one that you'll pick up over time. But if you can't create a nice culture and people don't want to be part of it, then there's no point even having the cricket.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's good advice that you've given there for any young leader or captain or vice captain to embark on their leadership journey. Just be yourself, be authentic, be real.
Yeah.
Many of the game's great captains have done that. They've been themselves and they've done their own things, and they've been pretty successful at it. So just be yourself and embrace who you are, and accept the responsibility that comes with being a leader or a captain, because you're going to make many tough decisions, mistakes. You're going to make a lot of mistakes, but you'll learn from that. Just embrace it, and do what you can for the team going forward, which is fantastic. Now, in terms of the women's team going forward, Emilia, what are the future series, tournaments that you have lined up for this year, and that you have your eye on in terms of performing better and getting some wins under the belt? So just talk us through the next few months, and especially this year when it comes to tournaments and series.
Yeah, so we've got some, not everything's confirmed, but we've got some tournaments against the Netherlands coming up. There will be T20, I believe. So that will be a good challenge, because I think T10's great, but anything can happen in T10. And I think T20 is it'll be a tougher challenge. So I'm really looking forward to that. We've got some tri-series, I think, against Germany and Jersey. And then we've got a big ECN tournament towards the end of the year, which I don't think it's been formally confirmed. There's 2 divisions, I believe. So it's the same. We played in it in December last year, so it's the same thing. But I think that there'll be some stronger teams in it this year. And so hopefully Italy will be put into the group with the stronger teams. And that will be a really good test. And I just think a great tournament to watch, actually. So look out for it. I think ECN have been really good at promoting women's cricket. And I think the way that they commentate on the matches and they promote the matches and they're investing in it, I think has been really, really good for associate countries. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, they do a very good job. And we'll talk about that a little bit later when we talk about women's associate cricket across the board and women's cricket. But going back on to the team, that's very encouraging, very promising, and definitely a lot of new challenges to be overcome. And I think everyone wishes you and the team all the best. Certainly I will be watching, and I'll be watching closely and seeing your performances as well and how you go about things, but also the team as well. And hopefully some wins for Italy. Get behind the team and support them, everyone, because they're doing some great stuff, and hopefully can keep on improving and getting better. So from what you've told us today, things are looking good. It's a happy team to be a part of. The environment's good. Everyone feels welcomed. Everyone doesn't judge anyone. You're all treated equally, which is fantastic. I think it's a really jolly good environment to be a part of. And hopefully that translates into the cricket, and we get some results on the park and get some wins, but also feel proud of representing Italy as well, which no doubt you and all the other players feel that moment when you put on the cap of Italy and walk out and represent the country in these tournaments or series that you will embark on during this year. So I think everyone would like to wish you all the best, and hopefully a lot of success going forward, Emilia, especially on a personal level for you with your cricket, but also the team success as well. And I think a lot of people will be watching with interest.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think it's going to be a good year. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm just looking forward to some sunshine as well and warmer weather.
Yes, Yes, the cold in England at the moment. It would be good to get away from the winter,
Yes.
definitely. But yeah, hopefully the team does well going forward, and we'll be watching with interest. Hi everyone, hope you enjoyed part 1 of our Associate Cricket Series episode with Emilia Bartram. I hope you enjoyed hearing Emilia and I discuss her cricketing journey and the Italy women's cricket team. Stay tuned for part 2 of our Associate Cricket Series episode with Emilia Bartram.